Are there any books or words of wisdom, specific prayers that you sort of are attracted to that help you in your battle? Is there anything that you can call out off the top of your head when you think about those things?
I like the rosary. I did not read growing up. I didn't enjoy reading. I thought it was boring, and probably because I'm a slow reader. But like many things, as I grew older, I realized that reading's kind of great, and there's a lot of good books. So I don't know if there's any necessarily one book that kind of jumps out, but I would say what does jump out is I pray the rosary every day. I go to daily mass a couple times a week. I get We're very blessed to have an adoration chapel that is open pretty much all the time. It's literally I drive past it as I drop the kids off from school. So I drop the kids off from school, I go to adoration almost. If I'm not in daily mass, I'm going to be in the adoration chapel first thing in the morning after I drop the kids off. I spent a lot of my time in adoration early on just reading books. Um, so one jumps out, which is Mystical City of God by Venerable Mary of Agreda. She was a mystic. She was a bilocator, and the life of Mary was basically presented to her by Mary, and she was instructed to write it out. It's like a 4 volume book. I mean, it took me 3 years to get through most of it because I would read one small chapter and it would just blown away. It's basically each chapter is like one small paragraph in the New Testament, the life of Mary and Jesus. It's really the life of Jesus through Mary, just like the rosary is the life of Jesus through Mary. And so it would take the wedding feast of Cana, which is like 3 or 4 Bible verses, and it's an entire chapter. And so if you struggle with meditation on the mysteries of the rosary or struggle on meditation of scripture, Mystical City of God takes away all of the creative mind work that's required in order to really immerse yourself in scripture and the stories. And obviously, you don't like, right? It's private revelation. You are not required to read it. You're not required to really, you're not required to anything. But if you struggle with those things, I can tell you that there's a condensed version of it where you can get just like one book and it has, let's say, the most notable stories. And pick one that you already know. Don't start necessarily at the beginning. You can even get it on Kindle for like $1. Um, but that was really profound. My brother is the one that gave me his set, and then eventually I think he got his own set again. But um, it took me, like I said, a long while to get through it. But that was transformational. Um, Introduction to the Devout Life. That was a book I read early on. Bishop Olmsted's exhortation on Into the Breach. That was I printed off like 30 copies and gave it to
Into the
every man
breach?
I
Mhm.
knew when I read like whew, talk about lighting a fire.
It's amazing, right?
Um, so those are some of the things that jump out. Father Calloway's
Yep.
book, Champions of the Rosary, is what by the time I was done with that book, the singular thought that I had was I've got all these people in my life that I love that I want to bring to Christ, and I have no idea how to do that. And all of the ways that I could think of to do it were really complicated and
Right.
seemed like I would get nowhere. And so I remember very distinctly thinking at the end of finishing that book, I want to be a champion of the rosary. Like, if all I have to do is get people to pray the rosary, that seems like way easier. If Mary's going to do the rest of the work, like just pray the rosary and Mary will do the rest of the work. That's way easier
Yeah, right?
than getting into theological debates and knowing the entire story of salvation and being able to argue against heresy. I'm terrible at that stuff. And so I made a conscious choice at that point to say, fine, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a champion of the rosary because that's what I can do. And the Catholic Woodworker website was not an online store when it started. When it started, it was just a blog for me to talk about and write about my experience with the rosary. It ended up being a store where I sell rosaries because naturally that's the gift that God gave me. But
Man, I had no idea. I had no idea that was the
That
genesis.
was, yeah, it was kind of my like it was a rosary evangelization. That was the primary goal. Um, and I still write, or I still work with. We've got a copywriter who does a fantastic work for us. So I work with her, and her writing's better than mine. But I still work with her. We blog once a month, but um, I realized pretty quickly that that was my gift of was making beautiful things. I can write okay. I'm not an eloquent writer or necessarily speaker, but I've somehow figured out how to make beautiful rosaries.